The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Hot, bold, sweet, smooth, and always flavorful. Welcome to my morning coffee. 3 generations of successful women, brewed with black girl magic and French press with class, sass, and style. Gia, Tonya, and Syreeta are my morning coffee.
Guys, happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Welcome back to my morning coffee. Glad you guys are here to join us. As you can see, Miss Gia is not here today, but I am Tonya McKenzie, your PR consultant and author.
And I am Syreeta, licensed marriage and family therapist. It was a long weekend, y'all. Don't mind me none. Hi.
Awesome. So let's let them know, why isn't Gia here today? What's going on with her?
Because she is a superwoman and she is actually supporting her mom. And, that's what we do. We wear many hats as women. So
we do. So, yeah, she, on top of being an amazing officer of Los Angeles County Sheriff Department and our local fashionista. She does take care of her mom, like many of us find ourselves in the situation to do these days. You can relate to that, yeah?
Yeah, I actually think that we should probably have a show on that at some point, like taking care of your parents or grandparents. I take care of my grandfather, but it used to be my grandparents. My grandmother passed away. It'll be a year on... Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. I used to, my great-grandmother had dementia when I was in high school, and we took shifts on who would go take care of her, making sure that she was taking her medication, making sure that no one was taking advantage of her, and things of that nature. So, it puts us in a situation where we were once the ones being taken care of, and now we're taking care of others. So that's a whole different role, and I think we should.
But that's how it should be. I think that when you have amazing people in your life that you love and that have supported you and taken care of you your whole life, the best give back is to be able to support them and take care of them in their time of need, in their older age.
So as a therapist, explain, do you also need support when you are supporting someone else?
Obviously. Caregiver burnout is real.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that, whether it's you're taking care of a spouse, you're taking care of a parent or grandparent. Yeah. You definitely need to have your own level of support because you can't do it alone. And it's a very isolating and lonely space to occupy as well. So.
Right. So we will be thinking about you, Miss Gia, as we go along today.
Yeah, yes.
And hopefully you'll have some cool stuff to report next time we see you. So why don't we let everyone know what we have been up to? Miss Syreeta, I know you've been busy.
Oh, wait now. We got a caller, y'all. Who is this that may be on the line for us? Oh, how funny is that? So we have Gia on the line. I guess we weren't doing it right. She got to call and check us, or she's gonna say check on us, but it's gonna definitely be checking us. So we're gonna put our headphones on so we can hear what she has to say.
Good morning.
Gonna be super colorful. Hello.
Good morning.
Oh.
Good morning, ladies. This is Gia.
Good morning. Glad to hear from you. What's going on? We miss you today.
Can you hear us?
No, I'm calling. No, I'm calling.
Are you
all right?
Right. I don't want to ask what's been in your cup this morning, but
I miss you guys. I was just calling to say hello and good morning.
Aw, thanks, love.
Are you out in that LA traffic?
I miss you guys too.
Okay, that part. Yeah,
All
all
right.
right.
Yeah.
Well, you have a good day, and we'll talk to you next Monday. We'll be back.
Okay,
I'm still here.
all right.
Okay, we'll talk to you next Monday.
Well, I think it sounds like
What? Gia, just hang up. We ain't got time for this. Go on now, girl. We're just gonna hang up on you. Bye.
Well, that's cute.
That was.
So
And
tell
she was
them,
our first
I'm excited
caller.
to hear about what you've been up to.
Wait, she was our first caller though, ever.
Oh,
That's kind of dope. Gia. Ooh,
she should
ooh.
have been here though.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So,
So what I've been doing. So I just got back from a wonderful conference. I went to DC and New York last week. I went to the what is it? The Boris Lawrence Foundation. Which is a foundation that Taraji P. Henson started in honor of her father, who passed away from cancer. But her platform is providing mental health services to Black people. She is paying for Black people to seek mental health support. And the whole conference was about, it was so dynamic. I won't go into all of it, but if you need mental health support and you feel that you cannot afford it, the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation will pay for you to get not just therapy, but adequate therapy, because there's a lot of therapists out in the world that aren't that great. So they have a platform, they have a directory of therapists that are reputable, and I encourage anyone who may feel like it's time for them to start on their journey of healing, and the way to do it is with a therapist, then because you don't need to go to therapy just because something is wrong, if you just want to talk. And so, yeah, and I was able to see my grandfather in New York, so I'm always happy to go home. But any mental health professional, anybody that's wanting to be involved, really look up the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, this past weekend I thought I was real grown, and on Friday.
How soon we forget.
Oh, no. Yes. Went to Soul Slam, which is the Michael Jackson and Prince dance party, and I go every year with my cousins. Shout out to Era, Casey, and Brandy. And then the next day I went to Smoking Grooves, and that was really dope with some friends. And I am tired.
I can see.
I am
living that LA live life.
Yes. So
good.
It's been a good week. Oh, and before... I don't know if you guys can see, but in honor of today, yes, I am a mental health professional, but I'm also a little on the ratchet side. So I have my grill in, and this is exactly and especially for Soren. So, ting.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That's it. No, I'm done.
Very good.
What have you been up to?
Man, so last weekend I was on the panel for the Women of Empowerment event.
Yes.
Women of Color Empowerment event. It was amazing.
I saw the
there
pictures.
was some phenomenal women that I was on the panel with. A couple of actresses and celebrity red carpet individuals. And I really want you guys to go kind of look up some of the work that they've been doing. The founders of the organization, the Empowerment Project, one of them is a Northridge student, a Northridge alumni, and both of them have come through the foster system, and because of mentors in their life, and just saw greatness in them. They were homeless at one time, both of them at different times, and with the backing of their mentors, joined together to start this organization, and the event was phenomenal, and it increases in attendance every year. Jan Perry was there from Los Angeles County. I think she's running for a position supervisor, supervisor this year. So she was there, was dropping jewels on us. And it was just amazing. It was amazing to see so many women of color come together to support these young girls that are putting together an organization to uplift foster youth.
What year is the conference?
So this is the second year.
This is the second, okay.
Yeah, and it was, as we do, it was heavily focused on moving past whatever your background is and entrepreneurship. So we talked a lot about business and how do you overcome those hurdles and the support system that you need. With that, one of the things that I noticed recently, so I went to UCLA's graduation. My girl Lindsay got her PhD.
Yay,
Awesome.
Linz!
Yes, cancer survivor. She's been going through this process while going through her surgery. Yep. So kudos to her.
Absolutely.
She made it. But I wanted to say the CEO of Kaiser spoke. He did the keynote.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people were surprised that he was African American. So, and the speech was phenomenal. But also, I was watching the news this morning, and the CEO of Raytheon is a black man also. Yeah. So we were having this discussion about why don't we see African Americans in this particular setting more often, right? Many people don't know. They were surprised at the graduation, like, oh my God, CEO of Kaiser, and he was black, right? And not too many people watch. They might watch MSNBC, but they don't watch, C-SPAN.
No.
So when those individuals in these positions are speaking, they're on the channels that we're
not tuning into
for the most part. So I did want to talk to you about how we as people of color consume information and content, because I think it's important to acknowledge that these figures are out there. We're always complaining about how we are portrayed in the media, but then when we do have a positive portrayal, we are not sharing it. And I'm trying to understand what we need to do better to share positive content. I remember I was talking to a gentleman about writing for his media outlet, and he says, well, positive and good news doesn't get clicks. And I was like, I'm not an ambulance chaser.
Right.
So I like to celebrate when people are doing great things.
Right.
So how do we better, move the conversation forward about how we are responsible for our image in the media? And I think it'll be a good opportunity to get Soren in when we bring him in. But I just wanted you to think about that a little bit, because the experience at UCLA was amazing. I mean, the energy was electric, but it was disappointing to see so many people surprised that this person was in that position. So I was just, I've been kind of sitting on that since Friday. It's just interesting to me how we play that, we're not portrayed well. Right. But then when we're not sharing that. We're not, spreading that information as quickly as we are about the Kardashians.
The gossip.
Right. So, but, kudos to Lindsay.
Yay.
In the UCLA
Congrats, Linz.
graduating class. It was pretty amazing to watch these people get hooded.
Yeah.
And other than that, just momming it up. And
it was Father's Day yesterday.
It was Father's Day, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, too. It was fun at our place.
I'm sure.
And, yeah.
Because all four are back. I mean, the gang's all here.
Yeah, and Nakia showed up, too. Yeah, so good stuff. We'll talk about that. Do you want to let them know what's next?
Yeah. We'll be right back with our guest who needs no introduction. If you know, you know. But he is an author. He is a writer. He is a dad. And he is going to be sharing with us his thought, especially because it's Black Music Month. We're going to have a really in-depth and great conversation with the incomparable Soren Baker about his book, The Art of Gangster Rap. The history of gangster rap.
Yep.
Jesus. The history of gangster rap. But even though you don't see my shirt, it's a Biggie shirt, but it's more of West Coast. So we're taking our hats off and giving the kudos to West Coast rap this morning on My Morning Coffee. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Hot, bold, sweet, smooth, and always flavorful. Welcome to My Morning Coffee. 3 generations of successful women, brewed with black girl magic and French press with class, sass, and style. Gia, Tonya, and Syreeta are My Morning Coffee. hot, bold, sweet, smooth, and always flavorful. Welcome to my morning coffee. 3 generations of successful women, brewed with black girl magic and French press with class, sass, and style. Gia, Tonya, and Syreeta are my morning coffee. Hot, bold, sweet, smooth, and always flavorful. Welcome to my morning coffee. 3 generations of successful women, brewed with black girl magic and French press with class, sass, and style.
Thank you guys for coming back to my morning coffee. It is my pleasure. Oh, God, it's such a pleasure to introduce you to this gentleman that I met at the Long Beach Indie Fest not too long ago.
You going to Indie Fest?
He went a couple years ago.
No, you. That ain't your
Can you?
Oh, okay.
Let me. Thanks. So, pretty awesome guy. I've been reading, because I like to read, all of his work and thoroughly impressed and really wanted to have a conversation with another author. And he is a hip-hop advocate. I can definitely say that. I'm excited to hear about his journey, his entrepreneurship, fatherhood, and we are going to bring him in right now, Mr. Soren Baker.
Yay!
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So let us know a little bit about the history of gangster rap first and how you decided to do that. So kind of walk us through your journey of how you got here.
Okay. Well, The History of Gangster Rap is my latest book, and I used to host a radio show with Exhibit called Open Bar Radio. It was on K-Day in Los Angeles, 2014 to 2016, and when I was doing that, George Hinojosa, who's Ice-T's manager, who I'd known for a long time, called me one day, and he's like, Soren, there's all these big rap books going on, coming out and stuff, how come you're not writing them? And I was like, well, I've written a few, but I need to do some more. I'd had a few fall through. I'd got to the finish line with some of them, but bottom line is it wasn't happening in the way that I'd wanted it to, the way I was trying to make it happen, and that I'd hoped it would. So I was like, well, George, you can call me, but are you going to help me? So he was like, yeah, what do you want to do? So we went over 3 book ideas collectively, and then given that I love gangster rap and he manages Ice-T, we were like, hey, let's try to do the history of gangster rap. And so I did a pretty thorough presentation. It's about 20-some pages, laid it out, how I envisioned the book being, and then we started sending it out to people, and thankfully Abrams Books loved it, and we did a deal with them, and it's been moving ever since.
And so when did you actually write the book? Like, when did it start?
It started when I was about 10 years old. That's when I fell in love with rap, and I've been studying it, listening to it every day of my life, basically, since I was 10. So it's been everything that I write is more or less a continuation of my love of rap since I was a 10-year-old boy growing up in Maryland. And, it doesn't, knock on wood, and thankfully it doesn't take me long to write because it's just been what I've been doing for my whole life, So it took me around a year to write the book, and that was mainly to track down the dudes to do the interviews, because my book features more than 30 interviews that are exclusive to the book. They're not things that I got in a newspaper or a magazine from back in the day. Like, I actually talked to Ice-T.
Original content.
Yeah, I actually talked to Ice-T. I actually talked to Snoop Dogg. I actually talked to Schoolie D. I talked to MC Ren. I talked to MC8. I talked to DJ Quick. I talked to more than 30 people for the book. So I wanted it to be that way because, as you guys were talking about in the media, a lot of times things aren't presented accurately or well, or the real stories aren't told. And I wanted my book
from the people who
did it.
Right.
It's a lot of sideline people talking.
Right.
So I wanted it to be more of the actual creators of it and the ones that helped drive it. And then, people like Ice Cube. I've interviewed Cube so many times over the years. I used some stuff from him that I had never published before. Similarly with Dr. Dre, and then Dr. Dre gave me a big quote I used on one of my posters and stuff for the book. And then I was fortunate enough that Ice-T, Exhibit, DOC, and Big Les gave me quotes for the back of the book. Exhibit did the foreword for me. So it's been amazing that a lot of the artists that I grew up idolizing or listening to or liking, that now, I'm friends with some of them, and some of them I have a good enough relationship to where, I'm just calling them up saying, hey, I need an interview for this book that they don't know anything about. And they're like, sure,
right.
What do you need?
Just let me know.
So I know many hip hop artists, they listen to other genres that motivate them and inspire them. What other genre of music do you get inspiration from?
Well, very few. I listen to
rap.
I really
Gangster
listen
rap.
to rap about 95% of the time. Go-go is my second favorite form of music.
Go-go.
Yeah.
He's from Maryland. He's from the DMV, of course.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta ask.
So go-go is my second favorite. Third would be R&B, and fourth, even though this is a group, I would say the Beatles. So
they're a genre.
yeah,
They're
a whole genre.
They're a whole genre.
Okay.
basically. They are the best.
Yeah, they are. They are
It's really
genre.
not comparable, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
I would, not to piggyback, but I want to ask a question in terms of the difference between, or your thoughts on the difference between hip hop and rap or gangster rap, because we sometimes use it interchangeably.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you can give some context to.
Well, hip hop is the entire culture. Rap is a component of it. So the four main elements of hip hop are, you have b-boying, breakdancing, you have graffiti, you have DJing, and you have rapping. So when people use them interchangeably, they're using them incorrectly. It's really, rap is music, and rap is part of hip hop culture. So they're not interchangeable, and people use them incorrectly all the time, which is unfortunate. But to me, that always just shows, okay, that's you're over there talking that's not really accurate.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'll let you say that, but yeah.
I will.
That's what
I
goes
won't be
on.
the one to say
Hey,
it.
you don't know what you're talking about.
That's what goes on in my mind when I hear people saying that, because it's not the case.
So then what's the difference between rap and gangster rap, if there is one?
Oh, there's a difference. And in my book, what I did was I focused on rap that talks about the gangster lifestyle, specifically gangbanging lifestyle. So it's a misconception that it started and was created on the West Coast. Schoolie D created it in Philadelphia first. And I talk about that. Schoolie D is my favorite rapper. And he gave me, actually, because I've become friends with him over the years, he gave me an original piece of artwork that he drew in the 80s that the first time it's ever been published is in my book.
Wow.
But Schoolie created gangster rap in around 1985 with his song PSK, What Does It Mean? And that PSK stood for, even though he spells it out and it's different in the song, it really also meant Parkside Killers, the gang that he was in. And then also on Parkside 5-2, he raps about gang banging stuff. So he was rapping about actual gang banging starting in 1985. Then you get into people like Ice-T, Eazy-E, and NWA a little bit later in 86 and 87 respectively. But basically what we saw once these artists started coming out and gaining popularity was that the look and the sound and the style and the aesthetic of rap itself changed, where everybody started dressing like the artists from the West Coast. Everybody started rapping about the West Coast. Everybody started appropriating all of those things, for better and for worse, in my opinion. And that's what I focus my book on. So if you rapped about the overall life of a gangster, like kind of a mafia, that's not gang banging. That's like a different world. And the rappers that do that, in reality, for people that really know how the mafia and that world of gangsterism works, none of those are letting a black guy in their circle. It's not going to happen. So you can pretend and say all this, it's not going to happen. Because they're obviously clearly racist and don't want to involve not their people in the mix. So that's pure fantasy world. Whereas the rappers that were rapping about, actual gangs, that's something that's based off of reality or is real. In Los Angeles, you have Bloods and Crips, and then, of course, in Chicago, which I talk about in my book, The History of Gangster Rap, the Chicago artists will talk about their gangs, whether that's the Gangster Disciples, the Vice Lords, the Latin Kings, etc. So that's what I focused on in my book, and that's really what we see when you have, whether it's Ja Rule wearing bandanas and khakis and stuff in his videos, or you hear Jay-Z talking about people wondering if he's a Blood or a Crip, which prior to that song I'd never heard anyone ask. But that's the type of thing that, that shows the pervasiveness of it, and it leads up to today in two different ways, where you see Cardi B appropriating a lot of blood talk into her aesthetic, her lyrics, and then you also see, people would argue, oh, gangster rap isn't alive, it isn't well. And then you would see like the reaction that people had to Nipsey Hussle's death, which showed that while the overall media, the overall society didn't know who he was revered and celebrated here, to where his celebration of life was held at the Staples Center. And that just shows you that
it is still alive and well.
Yeah, that people may not fully understand or appreciate gangster rap, but it's not only alive and well, but it's thriving.
And that's how it's always been.
It's always been that way.
Yeah, it isn't for the people who don't know. And I feel like there's a kind of a relationship to how, if you know the people who are in the mix, who understand gangster rap or understand the music industry, know who you are, but you aren't mainstream. I feel like gangster rap is the same. It's like, it's not the mainstream, but for the people who are supposed to know, they know.
Yeah, and that's, to that point, it's interesting because I talk about it. If we look at like the Mount Rushmore of gangster rap, and as I discuss in my book, you have Ice-T, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg. All those guys are, in my opinion, four of the best people that helped propel it into the national radar. And now all four of those guys have done phenomenal work, not only musically, but on the business side, and then also with their other endeavors creatively, whether that's acting, television, directing, writing, electronics companies, all different things that they have, and that all came from gangster rap. And then those guys, are looked at in a way that they're not even looked at as gangster rappers, even though, other than maybe Snoop now that he's doing gospel, all four of them, still do gangster rap. And Snoop obviously still carries himself as such. So, it's just the fact that those guys and dozens of others are still extremely connected, innovative, and still represent gangster rap to the fullest.
Right.
How much time do you spend with Bay Area artists?
The time I spend with them has decreased significantly because I don't travel as much.
Okay.
And they don't travel as much, at least in my exposure to them. But I do interview, talk to, and, I'm cool with a lot of those dudes. Who is your favorite
Bay Area artist?
Well, my favorite is not a gangster rapper, but it's Too Short.
Okay.
He's one of the best.
Could be a genre.
He's one of the. I mention him in my book, and I did a little sidebar because even though he's not a gangster rapper, he came of that world, being born in Los Angeles, raised in Oakland, and he talked about the other elements of the world, the drug use and abuse, the prostitution, the pimping, and a lot of the social atrocities that happened. And I think one thing that I always admired and revered about Too Short was that a lot of people want to focus on the female stuff that he discusses, but if you really go back, his first song really was Girl, and that's an anti-cocaine, an anti-drug song. Yes. And then if you go deeper, he raps a lot about the horrors of drug use. He also raps about, like in the song The Ghetto, showing that the ghetto is a lot more than as it's portrayed in the world. He had "I Want to Be Free," which was a police brutality song way before that. We had "Fuck the Police" and we had different one-time gaffing them up by Compton's Most Wanted. But for Too Short to make that "I Want to Be Free," to make that a single at a time when people were moving more and more to thinking of him as, this dude that rapped about pimp stuff, was remarkable. So Too Short, he's a phenomenal artist, and I think one of the best rappers ever by far.
I asked because my book is about a murder that took place in the 80s in the Bay Area. I spent a lot of time in East Palo Alto and Stockton as a kid, and some of the same elements of gangster rap happen in the Bay Area, but it's not as exposed as per se gang violence, but it is the same, I would say the same level of
the same results, sadly.
Yeah, same results
a lot of the time.
So I was just wondering how much of that have you spoken to, like Mr. Fab about his book and the crack era, and have had any of those types of conversations?
Yeah, well, Yuckmouth is I would say the Bay Area artist that's most prominently featured in my book, The History of Gangster Rap. I talked to him for a lot of things. One, he tells a great story about Drew Down coming down and getting caught up, I think it was in the 60s, getting into a lot of problems with that, which is a great story that's in my book, The History of Gangster Rap. I also talked to Yuckmouth about the sonic change of the music, because as I really focus on the music and the content of the music, the sound of the music. I don't really care about a lot of the, like you were saying, ambulance chasing type of stuff. Right. That's not what I'm into at all. It's about what's going on in the music itself. So with Yuckmouth, one of the other things that he did that I used as a pulled quote was he talked about how Above the Law helped change the sonics of the music with what they did with using the Parliament Funkadelic type of samples, but using them in a different way than NWA and EPMD and MC Breed and others had used them, that they used it and slowed it down in a way that then we see more popularized with The Chronic and with Doggy Style, and then with Warren G with Regulate. So Yuckmouth gave me a lot of great insight, and he also talked about, to your point, the difference of, in the Bay Area, you had the gang, or you had more like crews and hustlers and players that all still ended up in an extreme levels of violence, but it wasn't gang related.
That wasn't the first call of action. They weren't trying to be violent. It was just a byproduct of what they were doing.
Well, it also wasn't like gangs.
It wasn't gangs.
That's a big difference too. It's growing up in Maryland, it's crazy because I grew up right in between Baltimore and D.C., and when I was growing up one year, I read in the newspaper that the yellow caution tape in D.C., they ran out of it.
Wow.
1 year, and they did an article on it on the
Oh my
Washington
gosh.
Post. And I was
that is disturbing.
An early teen at the time, and I was like, well, Dad, what is, I'm reading this article, Dad, I don't understand. What does this mean they ran out of the tape? And he said, well, there's that much crime and violence that they didn't order enough. And I was like, wait a minute, there's that much? And this is like 20 miles from my house, and then the other 20 miles is Baltimore. So, this was obviously during the launch, explosion, and the pervasiveness of crack, and then Baltimore is big into heroin. So it was just, you have these two, chocolate cities that are really getting ravaged, and then that's also being played out throughout the country in all these other major metropolitan areas, especially in the black community. So what was going on back in Oakland is more similar to what was going on in D.C. or in Baltimore, because we had more crews or people or, turfs per se, but it wasn't like gang banging. That's like a different layer and level of it. And even in Chicago, from what I know about how those organizations operate, it's not not the same as LA. It's very different.
Right. So with the killing that I witnessed, as I did more research on it, started finding out things like there was more weapons and guns trafficked that was involved, and heroin and cocaine that had taken place, exchanges, and women. They had multiples. And those were all things that one could get involved with, that, but it wasn't gangs.
Right.
It could be because you're selling in my area, whether it's East Palo Alto or Stockton or East San Jose, Oakland, Richmond. It's different than gang violence, but it's the same level of violence and
it's the same outcome.
Sentences.
Yeah, and it's the same outcome.
Right.
I don't think I'm sure that police recognize and understand the differences, but when they're handing out the sentences, everybody getting swept up.
Right, pretty much. I wanted to ask you about your writing process. I love it. But I wanted you to walk me through how you go from your interviews, which I can tell are much more extensive than your writing, right? So you hold back a little bit. You don't give it all to us. You ain't giving it. Listen, I'm nosy. I'll be like, I know he asked him this. So when you have your interviews and you have these amazing people in front of you, these talented artists, where do you go from there to your writing? Like, what do you decide to include or hold back? And what is that process like for you? Do you just sit with the information for a while before you write, or do you just get right into it so you don't forget anything?
Well, mine is all on deadline. So I just go by what I have to turn in first as to when I write it. And I have to plan accordingly since I write a lot of different things all at the same time. And then as far as what I decide to include, usually a lot of the guys, I know them at this point, but the ones that I don't, if they say something or I ask them, they'll either say, don't put that in, or they'll say, I don't want to talk about that, and then we'll talk about it off the record or something. Because I get a lot of that.
Right.
And then a lot of the dudes that I know, personally, they'll just tell me whatever, and then I'll just be like, either I know not to put that in,
you get a look.
or I just know. I've known a lot of these guys, for decades now.
Right.
Okay.
Since I was, a little kid. So, at that point, you have to use your discretion, but at the same time I've put in a lot of stuff that people were mad about, but I'll ask them, like, you care if I put that in? They'll be like, nah, go ahead. And then I'll do it, and they'll be like, man, what
you doing?
Why'd you put that in? I'll be like, I asked. They're like, I know, man, my bad. So
So tell us about your entrepreneurial journey. You have done a lot of things, but it seems like everything that you're doing is something that you enjoy.
Yes.
And how do you keep that moving forward? Do they all pay great? How do you get through those moments when you're like, it's not paying what you want? Because we're always trying to inspire entrepreneurs to make sure that they follow their passion and they do the things that they enjoy and make money from it. So if you could share a little bit about that would be great.
And what they have been. What have been your businesses and the things that
Man.
Right.
People joke that they think I'm like Jamaican or Caribbean because I got so many jobs. But I do.
Gypsy.
Right.
I had to.
I got so many. But the one thing that I'll say in general is that the main thing is you have to believe that you can do it first and foremost. I tell my daughter this, and she's 9. And I've been telling her this since she was probably 1 or even less than that. But I tell her, like, you have to believe. And the bottom line is, especially black and brown people in America and around the world, the odds are stacked against you. So there's a lot of reasons or excuses or rationale or whatever you want to say as to why you can't do something. But there's thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of examples to show you why you can do it. And a lot of the guys that I write about in my book, The History of Gangster Rap, and a lot of the artists that I've interviewed throughout my life and that I grew up idolizing and that I started putting up on my wall as a 10-year-old, they're black men by and large, and they obviously have a lot of stuff stacked against them. So to say that you can't do it, if you believe it, then you're right. You won't be able to do it. But if you believe you can do it, you have a much better chance of succeeding at that. So I looked at it when I was 12 is when I realized that I wanted to be involved with rap as a career. And
how'd you get there?
Well, as a 12-year-old, I didn't understand that the Dana Danes and the Kumo D's and the Chuck D's and the Ice T's and all these guys, it didn't comprehend to me as a 12-year-old that they're 5, 10 years, 15 years older than me. So I was like, man, I can't write like KRS-One. What am I going to do? Like, how could I be involved? And, my parents were school teachers and I didn't have any access to the music industry. And then loving go-go, the only music industry was very indigenous to Washington. So I was like, I don't want to just be in Washington. I want to be like, doing it big around the world. So then I was like, well, how could I do this? And then I realized I had an interest in journalism. So then I was like, let me try to be a writer. And then when I got into college and I asked if I could write for the student newspaper, and then I did, and they paid me $5 for my first article, I was like, wait a minute, I could get paid to do this?
Word.
So then I just started.
It's a wrap.
Yeah, I started flipping that, literally and figuratively. So then I, started flipping all these opportunities. Like, okay, I could write for a newspaper. Then I said, I could write for a magazine. And then through all my different work, then I started, I'd done panels and different things because I started writing when I was a teenager, and I had my first national stuff published when I was a teenager. And then when I got my first job at Rap Pages and I moved out to Los Angeles, then I started writing for the LA Times and all these other places because I literally didn't worry about, I have a lot of confidence. So I didn't fear writing for a major newspaper when I was a little kid or when I was a teenager or when I started writing. So I just literally was like, all these places that I've heard of or that I know, I just sent them my stuff. I sent them my stuff. And it didn't matter if I sent it to them 10 times, 30 times. I just kept sending them. Like, yo, now I have written for the Chicago Tribune. Here's some more articles. Now I've written for the New York Times. Here's some new stuff. Oh, here's the LA Times. Here's more from the source. Here's XXL. Here's Vibe. Here's whoever. I just was trying to write for everybody because I believed that I was good enough to do it. And granted, I still needed to improve as a writer, and I still do. But
the heart was there.
Yeah, I loved and I knew a lot about rap. So I was like, well, I know as much about rap as anybody. And I believed that and knew that. And my friends told me that since I was a little kid. So I didn't...
Were you like one of the few on the block that was just like engulfed, or was your friends...
I was the only one.
You were the only one?
To the degree that I was.
Okay.
Like a lot of my friends love and listen to rap, but both black and white growing up in Maryland. But none of them loved it like I did. One of my friends, I would say Sean Craig, loved go-go as much as I love rap. But my dad, when I was running with Sean a lot, my dad even said to me, like, Soren, do you like go-go more than rap? And I was like, not Dad. But he's like, okay, I'm just curious.
How did your parents feel about you with this in-depth love for this urban culture?
Well, they were fine with it other than two things. One, they didn't like the profanity in particular, and then, they didn't really know about rap, and their really only exposure to it was the media, because, it was before their time.
Right.
But, so I learned to listen to music on my headphones very quickly, and then they also, because of DC and Baltimore being extremely violent, and that's where the concerts were, I'd be going to Howard, or I'd be going into DC, or I'd be going into all these places to go to the shows. Once I was able to drive, or even before that, my dad actually drove myself and a few of my friends to my first concert. So
Which was?
The Fear of a Black Planet tour by Public Enemy.
Wow.
So my dad drove myself, and I think it was 4 other of my friends. And like they had it was at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, and then we didn't know this until the event, but they had like a little lounge where parents could wait outside so they didn't have to leave.
Right.
Oh.
So my dad was like, well, I could go and then drive 30 minutes home and 30 minutes back. I'll just sit here. So he watched the concert on television in the parent lounge. He's like, yeah, there were a lot of nice parents. I've had some good conversations. So, but that was my first concert.
They need to bring back the parent lounge. I think that's actually a good idea.
Yeah, I was shocked. I thought it was a great idea. Yeah, my dad really liked it.
And it gave him exposure to a world that now he can have a conversation with you about. And there could be a potential for bonding. Not so much.
My dad has a lot of interesting experiences too, though. I mean, it was funny because when I was in, I think high school or college, I walked in, we had a 1-car garage that my parents renovated into a den that we used as the office, where I later wrote the majority of my articles, or almost all my articles, when I was living with my parents before I moved to LA. And one day I was like, Dad, why do you have a Bowie State University master's degree on the wall? Like, what is that? And he was like, I got my master's at Bowie State University. I was like, you went to a HBCU? He was like, yeah. I was like, what?
You've got to be kidding me.
I had no
So it's
idea.
in your DNA.
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea.
It's in your blood, Soren.
Very good.
But they, but I was going to say that the other thing, and it was both my parents, but of course more my mom, they didn't like the violence because, like I said, with the police tape running out in D.C.,
Yeah, that's
the
a real thing.
The go-go concerts, even more than rap concerts, were extremely violent.
What?
Yeah, like way more. Like literally, I think it was almost every go-go concert ended in a stabbing or a shooting. So that's also when I learned to leave the club early. So
Smart guy.
I learned all these different things.
You learn to navigate.
Yeah, and I also learned, especially with certain venues, that I couldn't go by myself, or not to like come with only one friend, to come with 3 or 4,
Right.
being white and all this other stuff. So it was very, you have to learn these things.
And I'm interested in that part of your journey, being a white guy that loves hip hop, and how do you navigate, or how did you navigate? Because I'm sure
Very carefully.
But what was it like, introducing yourself to guys, and especially going back to the whole mafia thing, how, they're not letting anybody who doesn't look like them in, but
Right.
black folks will accept everybody. Everybody can come to the cookout.
Right. Well, I was at a lot of them.
So tell us about that part of your journey.
Well, it was interesting because, growing up where I grew up is very racially diverse. So I'd still say it's majority white, but there's a lot of black people that live there. There's a lot of Hispanic people there. There's a lot of Asian people there. So I, through rap and playing basketball in particular, gravitated probably more toward the black part of where I grew up. But, a lot of my white friends love rap too. And it wasn't unusual for us. And it's also strange because where I grew up, and this is the only place I've ever heard of this happening, like in high school we had like parties, but we didn't have like a white party or a black party or a nerd party. We just had there were like 1 or 2 parties on Saturday or Friday or whatever it was, and everyone went.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like segregated like that, at least to my knowledge, because my friends, we just went.
Right.
And if they were my black friends that we went with, or a mixture or whatever, that's just what we did. So for me, that's what I thought was normal growing up. But it wasn't until I went to college that I saw like the white people didn't like me because they thought I was trying to be black, and the black people didn't like me because they thought I was fake, or I was like perpetrating, or whatever they thought. So that was like, I was like by myself in college, and that was very hard because I didn't understand it, because in high school, and even when I would go to basketball camp in D.C. or Virginia or Baltimore or whatever, like once the dudes saw how much I knew about rap, and bluntly I knew more than they did, they always respected me, and were like, oh, well, what do you think about this? And then they would talk to me, and it was just like, oh, Soren.
It was an icebreaker, or just like an equalizer, if you will.
And a lot of the dudes, especially I remember a lot of the dudes from D.C., then when I could talk to them intelligently and in depth about go-go, they'd be like, man, you're like the coolest white dude I ever met. Who are you? Like, where are you from?
You're a unicorn.
They're like, where are you from, man? And I was like, Anne Arundel County. They're like, what? So
One of the things you said, you know a lot about rap music, probably more so than some of these younger rap artists. So I want you to give the younger artists, because I think in any genre, really, not knowing your history is not a good look.
no, it's not.
So what,
Just in life.
talk to me about
It
that.
repeats itself.
Right.
It really does.
About the younger generation of rap artists, and what they probably should be studying up on or understand about
Becoming,
the history
being students
of gangsta rap.
yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting because this is as much as it is in rap, I think it's a societal issue.
Yep.
I don't think it's necessarily a rap artist issue. It's just, rap is like all art, it's a reflection of what's going on in our country. So in general, I think a lot of kids don't respect or care about history or what came before them. And, if we're talking about rappers in particular, you want to look at, and I try to do this in my life too, with myself and with other people that I look to for whatever reason. Like, what mistakes did I make? What mistakes did they make that I try to avoid? And I think that, and I've seen a lot of the artists say, oh, I don't care about that, or I don't listen to that, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But then when you make some of the same mistakes and you put yourself in bad situations that you could have easily avoided because you're just ignorant by choice, not by the history not being out there, because it is,
right.
not by
it's in plain
lack
sight.
of resources, because they're there. You are choosing to be ignorant. And that, to me, is the challenge that I think a lot of artists, but more importantly, in a bigger, broader sense, a lot of the kids of today have a big issue with. I'm not the best, unfortunately, with learning all the technology and social media. Like, I know it and I do it, but I'm not an expert of it by any means. And the challenge of that is I understood as things evolved in that way that I needed to get better at it. Yeah. So I understand, while I'm deficient in it in some areas, that I needed to learn it, and I needed to try to, evolve and acclimate and adapt. And I think, unfortunately, we see kids will be like, well, I know social media, I don't need anything else. But do you know how to read? Like,
and wow.
Do you understand the words that you were reading?
And and not just for anyone that's interested in gangster rap, who are the people that we should study? Like, if not just the younger
just study
kids.
My book.
Okay.
The History of Gangster Rap. Hey, it's all in there.
Right.
All right.
What'd you do yesterday?
Yep.
What did yesterday look like for you?
Oh, for Father's Day?
Yeah.
Well, I had a great day. Thankfully, I have a wonderful 9-year-old daughter. And my girlfriend, my woman, my partner, my everything, Davita, she orchestrated, I think, with some help from my daughter. I don't know how much. They didn't reveal that. But one of my favorite movies of all time is The Prestige. So this was a total surprise because I didn't try to figure out what was going on.
Right.
I'm
just,
good.
Just playing along. Just show up.
Yeah, I just like to show up.
Right.
I don't try to do all that. But they took me to a magic event type of thing, which was cool. I've never been to one before, so that was
Magic
really cool. And then we went to the beach, which was great. I just put my feet in the sand. It's a little cold. My daughter, however, was
all in.
If she would have been able to, she would have been swimming. She's very into being in the water and swimming, which is wonderful because I grew up loving to swim myself and be in the water. And growing up in Maryland, we had a lot of access to water, so that was cool. And then pizza's my favorite thing, so we got to go to Fresh Brothers, which I had never actually eaten in a Fresh Brothers before.
Oh, you've just gotten
to go or delivered or whatever. So that was to go with the two of them was amazing, and then to be able to eat my favorite food
with your favorite people.
With my two ladies, that was a beautiful thing.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, what do you have coming up? Oh, you know what? I want to hear more about what you're doing now. Your company right now.
Yeah, so my company, and we didn't get into all my 17 jobs.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
We're going to have to bring you back.
Please do. But one of the main things I do now is my Unique Access Entertainment.
Yes.
So I have that, and through that, you can go to YouTube, and it's Unique Access ENT. And basically on there, I do a lot of interviews with artists and just people that I think are interesting. So this week, or today, actually, I had an interview post with Tafari, who just put a new album out and that I've known since the 90s and had a lot of great experience with him. And that's a great interview. And I'm very excited about what's going on with Unique Access because I'm getting a steady stream of great interviews. And then next week we're scheduled to have Tony Basil. She had the Hey Mickey, You're So Fine. Yep. She's also a choreographer.
Yes, she is.
So that's supposed to come out next Monday. And she also is the choreographer of the Once Upon a Time in America film that Quentin Tarantino has coming up. So
the one with Brad Pitt.
And
yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
She did the choreography for that. So she's
still doing it, right?
She's still doing it big, and I was excited to interview her because among other things, the Hey, Mickey, You're So Fine, It's Tricky by Run EMC kind of
Plays on that.
played off of that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask her about that. So that was cool. And then she's just, as someone that's, older than, been in the industry before I was born, it was interesting to be able to talk to her. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm working on some other book, film, and television endeavors that I'm very excited about that hopefully I'll be able to share soon, because, my goals are really to be able to write and produce feature films, series, and documentaries, as well as write more books.
Right on.
So, I'm working on all of those things right now. But as far as the different things I've done, like I've done, I've had speaking engagements, I've taught classes, I've written for all the different publications. I've also done consulting. I've sold beats. I've produced things. I've directed things. I also did a short film that I'm hoping to make into a film or a series as well. And then I also have a big thing coming up.
Dang, Soren!
I also have a big thing coming up that's about to come up. Bill Duke and I, we've done I've been friends with Bill for more than a decade now, and he and I did a couple joint book events, book signings, because he had a book come out around the same time as mine. That's a memoir, biography, and also a commentary on his world, his life and career in film, and also with his family.
Which is extensive.
Yes. He's got more than 40 years. So
Yeah.
again, he was in it before I was born too. But the great thing about that is Bill and I just did a commercial with basically Bill and G. Perico are starring in it, and I have a little cameo in there. So I'm excited for this. I wrote it and Bill directed it, and then he and I and a couple other people produced it.
How cool.
So that's going to be coming out very soon. So I'm excited about
We'll
that.
be looking for that.
Yep.
So where can the people find you?
On all social media, it's just my name, Soren Baker, SorenBaker. And then also with Unique Access Entertainment, UNIQUEACCESSENT. And then if you just go to Amazon and look up my name or just Google me, you'll be able to find the History of Gangster Rap. And that's my 15th book.
Dang.
So please buy some of the other ones as well. And, I promote what I do on social media. So if you follow me on there, you'll be able to see, where I'm speaking, or if I have a book signing, or some of these other things that I have going on that are coming up.
And I retweet most of his stuff. But
and thank you.
I will also say, if you just go to SorenBaker.com, it'll take you straight to Amazon where you can purchase the book. Yep. I am a professional stalker, and I know how that works. I can be found at PRBIZMOM, PRBizmom, on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Tonya McKenzie Speaks. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. What's up with you?
And I just changed my Instagram handle.
I'm so excited.
Whatever.
She listens.
At Just Be with Syreeta. That is my Instagram handle now. And you can check me out and see all the things I do on my website, which is SyreetaButlerMFT.com.
And she has a logo now.
And I have a look. Whatever. We will be back next week, so tune in. I won't be here, so see you guys for the month. But I know I'll call in like Gia. No, I won't. But yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
you.
We'll have Ray McKenzie here next week. So we get to talk more entrepreneurship
and fatherhood.
With
Ray McKenzie.
With Ray McKenzie.
All
so
right.
we'll see you next week.
See you.